Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Salaam Alaikum, and welcome to the end of year summary episode of Muslims Uncensored, where we're going to be reacting to, memorizing, or fantasizing.
Don't take that out.
What's the word I'm looking for? Where you reminisce. Reminiscing.
Stop fantasizing.
Yeah, I was like, that's weird.
Oh, God.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Assalamu Alaikum, and welcome back to Muslims Uncensored, where we're doing a very special end of year episode where we'll be looking back at all of the highlights of our coverage here at Five Pillars from all the biggest stories where we've made a real impact throughout the year 2025. And I'm sure some of you would be a bit concerned the fact that we're doing an end of year show around this time period, the Christmas year period, but don't worry, we're not celebrating Christmas or anything like that. In fact, if there are any Christians watching this, you're better off being Muslim. So just to alleviate any concerns there, I'm here with my...
Ditch the Christmas tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't give any presents to your children.
And
Santa's not real.
Kids, Santa's not real. The closest thing to Santa would be a Muslim with the beard, being charitable, that type of thing. So again, Christians out there, Islam's the place to be. Well, that's our message, our end of year message to Christians, but there is a lot to discuss. It's been another big year, Roshan. Another big year for Five Pillars. There's a lot going on, a lot of stories to discuss, and we will get into it. Dilly as well, our brother Dilly Hussain, is also going to be joining us on the episode shortly, inshallah. But let's just talk about, I guess, what our favorite stories are of the year, what personal ones stand out for us. Do you want to start, Roshan? What have you done this year?
No, you start. I'm just going to wrap my brains while you talk.
Yeah, it's sometimes, I mean, I struggle to remember what I ate last night.
Yeah,
and I'm supposed to remember what I did the whole year.
Lake District Mosque is a nice little story that you've been on.
That's true. So basically, I think, Gaza is a big one. We are going to talk about that, so don't worry. A lot going on there, and obviously the threat of the far right. But yeah, I think for me, what stood out was the Lake District story. So there's a Mega Masjid being built up there, apparently. It turns out it's actually quite a humble Muslim mosque that's going to accommodate about 200 people at max capacity. But it was the target of a vicious far-right Islamophobic hate campaign after the announcement of the project hit the headlines. The Lake District is a very famous, picturesque, beautiful area of England here, and obviously, there's not many Muslims there. It's a tiny community. It's a famous area for English people, and there's kind of, patriots feel this need to defend it from foreign invaders. And so the fact that there was a mosque there, the first ever in the area's history being built, it got the far right their backs up, and it actually gave me the opportunity, subhanallah, although there was a lot of hate and the Muslims in that area were under attack, it gave me actually the opportunity to go and meet them, to get to know them. And, we've made some really good friends and contacts up there, and they're a beautiful people. We've covered the story extensively, and we've actually broken a few stories exposing and humiliating the far-right forces which are attacking that establishment and just humanizing these people. Because, as you know, Roshan, from your years of experience, that, Muslims are just demonized. It's as simple as that. The mainstream media never properly platforms Muslim stories. Their focus is on negativity. So I think we've actually flipped it and we've made it into a feel-good story. They're now getting a lot of support, some fundraising support. Muslims are actually going up there and helping them. There was a bicycle charity event to raise money for the place. And now I think it's probably going to be one of the most famous mosques once it's built, inshallah, which will be early 2026, hopefully. It'll be one of the most famous and beautiful mosques in this entire country, and we'll be welcome to visit there anytime. So if you're up there in the Lake District, and
absolutely.
Any of you going up to the Lake District, it's a great area for hiking. It's a great area for natural beauty. Muslims just need to go there and just get to know the community and help them out, and then do a bit of dawah as well. I think that's the intention there, inshallah. So yeah, that was my top story, I think. What's yours?
Well, I mean, I think I'm going to choose a personal story because obviously I don't do as much reporting as you or Haris or even Dilly maybe because I'm kind of like leading the organization and directing and composing.
Putting your feet up at the desk.
Yeah,
that's what you're doing.
I mean, I do the odd bit of reporting, and I still like doing that, but I don't do as much as you, obviously. So I'm going to choose a personal story, and it's actually just going on Umrah. I hadn't been on Umrah for 15 years, and my last Hajj was 15 years ago. So alhamdulillah, obviously you get the chance to focus on your ibadah, for 10 days in Mecca and Medina, the most beautiful places in the world, most holy places in the world. We're busy with our everyday lives, with our work, with our family, with other distractions. but you can go there. And I personally just obviously prayed every prayer in the masjid. Your prayers are worth 1,000 times more than a normal prayer in those masjids. So it's a extraordinary opportunity to ask Allah for anything, and to ask Him to forgive your sins and to have your sins forgiven, to be like a newborn baby. So I just focused on salah in the masjid, on dua, on Quran, and on seerah. And I did that every day. I didn't have to worry about 5 pillars, didn't have to worry about Dilly, you, and issues and problems or family stuff as well, which was, it's just a unique opportunity. And I encourage you to do it sooner rather than later, Robert, as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. I haven't actually been, to my shame. It just, I converted to Islam when I was young and didn't have the means of travel. Then when I started my career, obviously I got busy with that, and I got married as well. We've been focusing on raising kids. So traveling and exploring the Muslim world, apart from what I've been doing for work, I just haven't had the chance to do. I've been focusing on other things,
Well, this year, you should go, inshallah. You'll have the opportunity to go this year, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. I pray that it's going to happen, and I've always felt that it will happen when it's right, and when it does happen, we'll make the most of it. I mean, everyone loves to see a white convert going to Saudi Arabia or whatever. That would make a good video, and honestly, it would be an amazing experience for me. I envy you in that sense, and I wish you all the best, because just the idea of me going is going to be spectacular. I just can't wait, inshallah. We are going to get Dilly on, so inshallah, let's see if he's available now. Well, we're actually joined now by our dear colleague, Dilly Hussain. Assalamu alaikum, Dilly, can you hear me?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Robert, Roshan, how you doing, brother?
Fine, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, good to see you, man. Yeah, it's been one of those years. It's been a busy year, crazy year, a lot of big stories. And yeah, it's been hard to meet each other, isn't it? Because you're busy doing all of your stories, your podcast, interviewing all of those far right guys, and then there's me infiltrating their protests. So there's been a lot going on. But before we talk about any of that, could you just give us your highlight of the year? What your favourite story has been? Me and Roshan was his trip to Umrah. That was his highlight of the year. For me, it was the Lake District Mosque. That's the story and the travelling I've done, which I've liked the most. What's yours been?
So there's a couple of stories that stand out for me this year, and it has really been a manic year, right? And before you joined, Robert, me and Roshan used to do these end of year recaps, but this year really has been absolutely bonkers. I mean, if you thought last year was crazy, last year with Hasina falling, Bashar falling, the ongoing genocide, this year was absolutely even more crazier. But the stories which stand out for me, of course, is the so-called ceasefire, the Trump-led ceasefire, and the absolute circus show that we all witnessed at Sharm el-Sheikh with all the Muslim and Arab rulers. The ban on Palestine Action, huge. The arrest of Sami Hamdi, very significant.
Wow, big
one. And of course, the Iran war, that was pretty bonkers as well. I mean, some would say that it was inevitable, it was coming, it was in the pipeline, but to see it happen in the way that it did was definitely a story that kind of highlighted how 2025's been. But for me, I think the mainstreaming of the far right is a story which has kind of developed, progressed, and has been an undercurrent for the last year, whether that be in the UK or in the US. We've reached a point now where a sitting US president can make statements like describing Somalia as a shithole. It's a smelly country. They do nothing. And that's just touching the tip of the iceberg in terms of some of his colourful terms to describe Somalis and Somali Muslims. You've got pretty much a Labour government that's operating and making policies as if Reform are already in power. You have the red carpet treatment by Israeli officials and diplomats of Tommy Robinson, this freaking absolute low-life career criminal fraudster, right? Who people wouldn't be seen in the mine of with a barge pole about 10 years ago. All of a sudden now has become, whether we like it or not, the poster boy of the far-right movement across Europe. And it's now obviously trickling down to policies. And I think the developments that we've seen in 2025 with regards to I don't call it the rise of the far right. We're no longer talking about the rise of the far right. We're talking about the mainstreaming of the far right. Many discussion points that you would think were restricted to the darkest corners of internet chat rooms of white supremacist incel communities are now policy talking points. You've got the US Homeland Security talking about all we want for Christmas is remigration. Now, for our viewers and listeners who don't know what remigration means or total remigration, it means mass deportations of naturalized citizens, including first, second, and third generation people of immigrant descent. That's where we're at now in 2025. There was a revelation just last week that 2 million British Muslims, including first and second generation Muslims, are at risk of potentially having their citizenship revoked the Shamima Begum way, simply because our parents or grandparents have an ethnic heritage elsewhere. And this is just a taster of what British Muslims should be expecting in the next couple of years. We've got an election in 2029. I don't think there's going to be a snap election. I don't think Keir Starmer will make it till 2029. I think there will be a leadership change, a coup of some sort. But Labour will stick it out to 2029. And this Labour government's going to become increasingly pandering and appeasing to the reform voter base, which is essentially anti-immigrant, racist and Islamophobic. And the year that we've just seen will shape, no doubt, the year ahead and the very worrying prospect of a reform or a reform Tory-led government. And when I talk about the mainstream of the far right, you can just see how much the Overton window has shifted, in the sense that so many people are now basically echoing neo-Nazi talking points, far-right talking points, white supremacist talking points, things which were kind of restricted to the dustbins of conspiracy theories, whether I'm talking about the Kalergi plan or whether I'm talking about the white genocide. These discussion points have now become pretty much mainstream. Now, what that's also done, sorry for going on this digress, but what that's also done is kind of opened up also people's eyes to the nefarious influences of the Zionist lobby. Because it was literally a month or 2 months ago, it was as if someone switched a button and took all focus away from Israel's genocide in Gaza and the never-ending war crimes that they need to be investigated for. And all of a sudden, the focus became on Muslims and migrants. And that shift, I would respectfully conclude, is as a result of the seismic pivot of Western public opinion against Israel. I don't think we should downplay that. Is that going to liberate Palestine? Absolutely not. But what has happened, which has not happened in previous decades, Roshan can obviously share the experience of previous decades due to his seniority, but we've not had this level of white Westerners across Europe and North America, quite frankly, reject Zionism and rigorously and aggressively question the proximity of their respective governments, whether it be in the US, the UK, across Europe, with a foreign lobby. How is it that every law is implemented on every citizen except for this special group of Zionist Jews or a Zionist Jewish lobby? How is it that Americans and Brits, their respective governments, are censoring the most basic of speech and political expression and expression of solidarity with an occupied and oppressed and genocided people? And the way they've dealing with it now is basically cracking down and censoring speech, like we've just had an hour ago, that they're going to be banning chants like, globalize the Intifada. The Greater Manchester Police and Met Police are going to now be arresting people because there's been such a universal hymn sheet that everyone's been singing from since the Manchester synagogue attack and, of course, the Bondi Beach attack most recently, that terms like globalize the Intifada and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and these type of statements have contributed towards anti-Semitism. So just to kind of recap, the normalization of the far right, the normalization of anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant rhetoric, which has been coupled with data proving there's been a huge exponential spike in anti-Muslim hate crimes. We've seen it. We were the ones that have been pushing these videos out. We were the ones that made these videos of these incidents go viral, which then led to arrests and charges. We've seen a huge spike in that. Muslim women being harassed in public, being filmed in public, Muslim schoolgirls being harassed and filmed in public. All of this is clearly to create an environment to make it very difficult for Muslims and broadly people of immigrant descent, and ultimately, I believe, is to distract the world and the Western population from a genocide which Israel has committed and one which our governments have been complicit in. So I think that's, for me, that has been the highlight for 2025. Seeing day by day, week by week, month by month, how far-right talking points have basically become policy circle talking points.
So Dilly, obviously we agree that far-right is on the rise, mainstreamed. I think we agree that Reform UK is on track to win the next general election. How serious is this a threat to Muslims, to British Muslims, and what can we do about it?
Roshan, my dear brother, we have lived through the David Cameron years. So that was 2010 to 2015, and then 2015 to when he left after Brexit. We lived through the Theresa May times. We lived through the Boris Johnson times. You would probably remember more than me the kind of Tony Blair period. I believe firmly that the years ahead, if Reform don't implode in this time and they form a majority or coalition with the Tories, I think the tenure of their administrations will be like nothing before. Even the language, the framing of argumentation, Roshan, to talk about Muslim civil rights and Muslim rights and so forth, even that Overton window has shifted so much. What Conservatives and Tories and those, even the likes of Gove et al., where you could, look how crazy this is. It's become so crazy that the likes of Nick Griffin now have come across moderate. And that's just the fact of the matter. The likes of Nick Griffin now come across as moderate. If we look at where the likes of Rupert Lau is, or where the likes of the Remigration Camp and the New Christian Nationalist movers, where they are. We had a march in London, Roshan, 150,000 people calling Islam the enemy of Europe, that it needs to be ended, that Muslim men are rapists who are going to behead your girls and behead your sons and rape your children. No other religion would be spoken like that in the country's capital. How big of a threat do I think it is? I think it's a very serious threat. I think the biggest thing, 3 tips for our listeners: get training, stay fit, do some self-defense. That includes sisters. Masajid need to up their security budget without relying on the government. And number 3, we need to now start formalizing community patrol groups in liaising with the local authorities so nothing descends into any type of vigilante activities. If Jewish communities have their own type of police force, their own type of community patrol forces, which is what CST does, I don't understand why British Muslims, who outnumber the British Jews in demographic numbers, who outnumber the British Jews in finances and in terms of our income, how is it that we have not yet established community patrols? How is it that we've not established heightened and increased security measures for our masajid? Why are we waiting for government handouts? We don't want government handouts to protect our masajid. We have enough businessmen and entrepreneurs to be doing that. I would much rather have my daughter, my nieces, my sister go out because let's be frank about it, brothers, we can't lock our sisters and mothers and daughters and wives in. We're in 2025, there's going to be times where they're going to have to go out. I'd much rather they go out and know how to get out of a chokehold, or know how to, defend themselves, or break out of a lock. So I think it's a serious threat. I don't want to fearmonger, but I think all the signs are there. Roshan, you were the one who basically said that never ever rule out that we could have another Bosnia, that we could have another Srebrenica, that Britain is not that far behind France. You used to always say that. I did used to think at the time that you were a bit OTT, but wallahi, now I see how it can very much happen.
What about in terms of Dilly?
Very easily it can happen.
Dilly, in terms of what we can do to perhaps prevent Reform UK coming to power, is that even possible? Do we have to make alliances with non-Muslims? Is there anything practically we can do to get organised, to get ahead of this threat, not to just wait for it to happen and then firefight, but to perhaps mitigate the scope of the threat?
For sure. I mean, look, it's a multifaceted issue that we have at hand, which is going to require a multi-pronged approach to it. So there's the whole advocacy, the lobbying, the media stuff that we're doing, as well as the constituents. In those constituencies, I believe Muslims do need to galvanize, coordinate, and come together and mobilize to get independent pro-Palestine MPs who will not have to toe the party line, would not be submissive to the party leader, who can rebel and speak out. I think that is the momentum we need to continue with. We've managed to get 4 independent Muslim MPs. Comparatively to any of their Labour counterparts, they've been very good. I think the way Ayub Khan managed the Maccabi Tel Aviv situation, he should be applauded. And we want more types of principled stances like the way Ayub Khan took for more MPs. And that'll only be possible if we manage to get principled, independent, and I say, yes, Muslim MPs. I think that's the momentum we need to work on. Sure. I think we need to focus on those key constituencies. We nearly had another 5 or 6 more.
Yeah.
We had Lian Mohammed, we had Ajmal Masroor, we had, I forgot the brother's name, Brother Imran from Bradford, who nearly beat
Mohammed Imran, yeah,
we could have easily had 10 to 12 people, 10 to 12 independent MPs in the Commons now, and I think we just need to carry on and build that momentum. And my only concern, Roshan, in the 2024 elections was that would we be able to keep the momentum up? Because the last election, we got those independents in and those tight second places based on the Gaza ticket.
Because of Gaza, yeah.
So at the time I was thinking, what happens in the next election when there's no Gaza genocide? What do we galvanize around?
Well, it's probably going to be about the far right, isn't it?
I think this Labour government will no doubt give Muslims and generally people of immigrant descent and from the genuine working class enough reason to punish them at the next election. Because they're going to continuously pander and appease to the reform voting bloc and the Tommy Robinson supporters. And I think from now until the next general election, whenever that is, whether that's in 2029 or something happens before then, I think Muslims will have to, by principle, punish Labour, and it has to be an end of an era. The Muslim Labour honeymoon has to come to an end, and the next general election has to be it. I don't think we can prevent a reform government coming into power. What we can do, and this boils down to the Independents, Green Party, and other principal candidates, where we can avoid vote splitting, and inshallah try and get as many principled MPs in the House of Parliaments.
Dilly, I know that you're busy with 5 Pillars today editing, so I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but I thought, Robert, if you don't mind, I thought maybe we'd ask Dilly about a few subjects where he has more expertise than us, and then we don't have to talk about it. And one is Bangladesh. So obviously that was one of the stories that we identified that we've been covering quite a lot over the year. Give me your thoughts on Bangladesh post-Hasina in 2025.
So when all that happened last year, it was obviously huge news. This was Sheikh Hasina, a tyrant who had been ruling Bangladesh with an iron fist for 14 to 15 years. Her father is considered as the founding father of Bangladesh. The interim government, Muhammad Yunus, has been very limited in what he can and cannot do. He's obviously facing immense pressure from the supporters of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, which is the largest opposition party, who obviously smelt blood when the Hasina regime fell, because naturally they would obviously assume a landslide victory. And the BNP are not entirely good faith actors when it comes to the politics of Bangladesh. They themselves have been deeply connected and involved in corruption, political violence and so forth, not as comparable to the Awami League. But I think one of the, I wouldn't say not disappointments, because I wouldn't say that. I think the removal of any tyrant who had a clear opposition to Islam is a good thing. I think that's something that should be celebrated. And I'm proud and happy for my motherland and the people of my motherland to achieve such a huge thing, and to do so without descending into a civil war or an armed insurrection. But I guess a tad disheartedness surrounding the lack of Islam within the movement.
Yes.
That is not to say that there weren't Islamic students or there weren't affiliations and offshoots of different student wings that were Islamically inclined. They were involved. But the student-led revolution, which led to the downfall of Hasina, was ultimately a mixed bunch, but primarily led by secular liberal kind of students, which had within it your kind of Islamically inclined students of Jamaat-e-Islam and others. But it really was a mixed bunch, and most certainly, I would say the more kind of secular liberal nationalist elements were far more vocal in that regard.
Why is that? Why is...
and the freedom for religious expression has got better in Bangladesh, but the lack of Islamic direction for the new Bangladesh and the election, which is going to take place in February the 12th, is what's just a slight disheartening.
Well, why is that? Is it because Bangladesh is a naturally secular society, or it's been secularized over the years? Why this lack of Islamic activism in Bangladesh?
Bangladesh has a deep history of Islamic activism. It's not that the country isn't conservative or Islamically inclined. Bangladesh is very, very Islamically inclined and very much Islamically conservative, very similar to Pakistan from a societal point of view and other Muslim majority countries. The issue with Islam in politics is in the psyche of the Bangladeshi. Islamic politics or Islam in politics is something which was propagandized and taught to the Bangladeshi masses that it was a Pakistan project.
Yeah.
Pakistan was a nation state that was founded for a safe haven for Muslims. Pakistan, the land of the pure. Well, formerly East Pakistanis, we tried that project, and it was a bloody affair. It was a very sad affair. It led to hundreds of thousands of deaths. So whenever Islam and politics is mentioned in the public discourse in light of politics, it brings back that type of trauma, a lot of which, by the way, is orchestrated propaganda by India and the Awami League. This was their attempt at detaching any form of Islam or traditional conservatism in line with Islamic culture or Islamic hate culture from the identity of Bangladesh, because they synonymized it with Pakistan. So if you were someone who wanted more Islam in Bangladeshi politics, you were forever labeled as a Razakkar, a Gaddar, an agent, a sellout, someone who's a Pakistani agent, a terrorist, someone with a foreign agenda. And they've basically embedded that into the psyche of Bangladesh's generation after generation, basically since liberation. So since 1971, any type of discussion about Islam in politics is nearly associated with Jamaat Islam, who are seen by many constituencies of Bangladeshis as a group who basically collaborated with the Pakistanis in the liberation war. It's nothing to do with that Bangladeshis aren't conservative, aren't Islamic, aren't practicing. They absolutely are. It's the third largest Muslim majority country after Indonesia and Pakistan. After Arabic, it's the most spoken language amongst the Muslim Ummah. It has a huge and deep Islamic history. It has some of the biggest Islamic ijtimas for the Deobandi movement and the Tablighi Jamaat movement. From the Indian subcontinent, it has the most influential Jamaati Islam wing. Jamaati Islam in India, and by the way, for our viewers and listeners, Jamaati Islam is basically the subcontinental version of the Muslim Brotherhood. In India, Jamaati Islam are not that influential. Jamaati Islam in occupied Kashmir are banned. Jamaati Islam in Pakistan are not what they used to be under the time of General Zia. The most powerful Jamaati Islam, and that's me not being partisan, it's just me stating a fact, the most influential wing of Jamaati Islam in the Indian subcontinent is in Bangladesh. They are now the second largest political party. So I think Bangladeshis are Islamic, they're conservative, they're practicing in huge numbers. Why it doesn't translate into their politics is due to the historical baggage, the trauma that's linked to Pakistan, and how people have basically been brainwashed into believing that anyone who wants Islam in politics goes against the very foundations of the Bangladeshi constitution, which is ultimately a secular constitution.
All right, Dilly, thanks. That's very clear. Let me finally ask you about Syria before we let you go. Sure. Looking back at 2025, so I think my view, I don't think Robert differs too much from my view, is that, alhamdulillah, Assad is gone. A butcher is gone, the people can breathe. We saw millions on the streets during the anniversary. That tells its own story, that the people of Syria, in their vast majority, are happy to see the end of the dictator. I think we can all agree on that. Where I have reservations is obviously the move from the Russian-Iranian orbit. I'm not saying that was good, but I'm saying what Syria's undergone is they've moved from a Russian-Iranian orbit to a Western orbit. And now it seems to me that Syria's room for maneuver is virtually non-existent. It's basically a weak state, completely in the hands of other actors, and especially the West now in the United States. And then obviously the United States is allied to Israel. So it's basically a sitting duck at the moment. So for me, that's the troubling aspect of Syria, a state which, despite all its imperfections and its brutal dictatorship, was a sort of block on the hegemonic intentions of Israel, has completely gone now. So that's where I see the negative. So your comments on that, please, Dilly.
Yeah, I think Syria today is better than Syria last year, and we have to be fair in our observations in seeing that millions of Syrians, the vast majority, overwhelming majority of Syrians, especially Muslims, Sunni Muslims, are happy. And whilst you're absolutely correct in that they've moved away from the kind of Iran-Russia axis, which barely exists at the moment, by the way, will the axis of resistance even do a comeback? Will it even recover? We don't know. But they would argue that being aligned with that axis is what led to more than 500,000 deaths and 12 million people displaced. So unless this new axis that they're moving within doesn't have that type of human cost, they will say that's a net benefit. I know that's a very crude way to see it as. Sanctions have been lifted. Syria is now reintegrated into the Arab Muslim community. But they are a sitting duck. And I don't think they're a sitting duck out of choice. And that's the honesty that we need to have. Those who led the operation deterring aggression, Hayat al-Tahrir al-Sham and the other rebel factions, these are groups that aren't necessarily known for being sitting ducks. These are groups who are on record saying that they want to fight the Zionists and the Israelis and they want to liberate Al-Aqsa. It's all on record. But their hands are tied, Roshan. Their hands are tied. Israel can literally bomb Damascus and the south at will, and literally there will be no payback because Syrians don't want war. They're exhausted. They don't want war. The people don't want war because 60 to 70% of the country is inhabitable. What broken and decimated Syria will ever take on Israel? However, I do have a slight optimism, and inshallah, I hope that this optimism translates and manifests into something meaningful. And that is that we shouldn't rule out Turkey or downplay Turkey's role in this. And that whilst we can absolutely criticize Erdogan and his lack of action, him allowing Azerbaijani oil to go through to Israel, and the very, very, very late boycott of diplomatic relations, which should have actually been done on October the 8th.
Day one, yeah.
I believe there are more promising signs that Israel, in its genocidal, expansionist nature, will end up bringing war to Turkey's doorsteps. And Turkey is not Hamas. Turkey is not Qatar. Turkey is not Iran. Turkey is NATO. Turkey has the best drone systems in the world, one of the best drone systems in the world. They have the American nukes there. And I think that a war between Israel and Turkey, this is just my hunch, I believe it's going to happen by December 2027. We're in December 2025. I believe in 2 years there will be an open war between Israel and Turkey, and the main battlefield will be Syria. In fact, I believe that Ahmed al-Shara, as well as the Qataris and the Turks, I through the grapevines, I've heard these whispers that they're already preparing. There's preparations already being made, and in fact, the time's ticking before it becomes open war. Israel's already bombing Syria. Israel already bombs Syria when it wants to. It establishes checkpoints when it wants to. I just believe that Turkey will have a far more vested interest in this new Syria to succeed and prevail. I think for selfish reasons, Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia would also want this new Syria to prevail. And it is within these opportunities, we hope there are pockets of moments which can be seized upon, and inshallah a better future will come. But there's no denying that Syria's hands are tied. Of course it's a sitting duck. It's a sitting duck because it doesn't know who to please and what to do. It doesn't know, on the one hand, it's trying to placate to Europe and the West. It needs sanctions lifted. Then it's got internal issue with the Druze in the south and So there's sleeper cells in Latakia and Tartus, and they've got the Kurdish issue with the SDF. There's so many issues internally and externally that's taking place. And I think with all those things given, I think Syria, 1 year on, is actually in a much better place. The fact that Muslims can visit in and out. The fact that hundreds and thousands are returning to their homes. The fact that there are now investments going into Syria. The fact that, this new Syria appears to at least be more inclined Islamically. Now, I don't know if they're just drip feeding that to keep us Sunni romanticists happy. But what I do know is this: Syria and Turkey cannot avoid a war with Israel. It's coming. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Okay,
and I think they're already making preparations.
Okay, Jazakallah, Dilly. Robert, any follow-up or?
We're sort of sharing a mic, me and Dilly, so it'll be hard to have a deep back and forth. But I think we've covered
he needs to go anyway.
I think we've covered a lot of ground. But no, it's a pleasure to see you. I think the only thing I'll pledge in the next year is to try and make more time to see you. Maybe I'll come into the office when you're here, or inshallah. Well, I think maybe we need to bring the team together more often. We're talking about doing churning out and doing our shows on the road. Maybe that'd be an opportunity where we can do sort of like a Blood Brothers and Muslims Uncensored collab or something, or do one show after another at different locations. That's a good idea, maybe. So inshallah, let's see. We're gonna work together closely. I think we've got big challenges ahead, inshallah. So
okay.
Thanks for your support and thanks for coming on the show.
All right, Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum, Dilly.
So we've a lot discussed and a lot to discuss, Roshan. Dilly did mention Gaza at one point. We have to discuss it. I mean, it's such a massive story, isn't it? Palestine. He mentioned
the main story. Yeah.
He mentioned the conflict between Iran and Israel, and that's part of a wider conflict which did occur. But now it seems like the Muslim world has climbed away from that. Gaza stands pretty much alone. Obviously, there's that ceasefire in place and the Trump deal. But I mean, Palestine is still dying. It's still dying.
It's not been good year. No good news at all, really, on that front. I think. Obviously, the genocide continued for the majority of the year. Every day, massacres of women and children, massive destruction of infrastructure, and just relentless evil and satanic content that we were seeing on our phones every single day. Then came the ceasefire a few months ago, and that was a breath of fresh air, a bit of hope. But looking back after 2 months of ceasefire, alleged ceasefire, it actually looks like it was false hope, in the sense that the genocide has continued, maybe at a bit of a lesser rate, but the displacement goes on, the bombing goes on, the death and destruction goes on at a little bit of a lesser level only. Whereas this so-called peace plan that everyone seems to have signed up to, including most Muslim countries, is absolutely shameful and ultimately means the recolonization of Gaza. And it's a surrender plan, and it obviously has been rejected by Hamas and other Palestinian factions. But it's hard to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And it seems as though not only have the Palestinians given their blood and treasure, over 2 years now, hundreds of thousands of dead. But at the end of that process, it seems as though the Muslim world has officially abandoned them. And we all know that they had abandoned them anyway, but they actually put pen to paper. And nations like Turkey and Pakistan, and as well as the collaborationist regimes like Egypt and Jordan, UAE, and others, Indonesia, they've actually put pen to paper to a surrender deal, which basically means the end of Palestine as we know it and any hope of freedom and resistance. Obviously, that needs to be clearly stated. That nobody should have any hope in a ceasefire. Nobody should put any hope in this kind of fake Palestine state, which was announced to such great fanfare, and the Labour MPs, kind of heralded it as some kind of massive breakthrough. All cloak and daggers. It means nothing whatsoever, and it's very hard to see any light at the end of the tunnel. I just repeat, the Palestinians have to keep their faith in Allah, have to stay where they are and wait for a better moment. They are lions of this ummah, they're examples to us all, and they put us all to shame.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I've said it before. I just think that we just lack power to change anything really, and we can only do our best, but it's in Allah's hands. We have to wait for when Allah is going to turn this and hopefully put our enemies on the back foot. But we're being tested extraordinarily. But this is a temporary existence, and obviously those who are martyred, the women, the children, the innocent people that are being killed, the martyrs of Gaza, they go to paradise, don't they? So I guess that's the only thing we can take away from this. But it's a shameful time to be alive.
But one positive consequence of it is obviously what Dilly was alluding to, this huge shift in public opinion in Western nations, who ultimately are the ones that prop up Israel, and without whom Israel cannot sustain itself. So that is something quite significant, and that's why we're seeing Western nations resort to crazy measures like the banning of Palestine Action, the banning of Intifada chants, etc., etc. So I think we have to consider that as one success, that Israel has been delegitimized in the eyes of most nations in the world and most people of this world. And I'm confident that one day that will have a direct consequence for Israel. We might have to wait for some time for that to happen, but I'm confident it will happen, inshallah.
Yeah, that brings us on to a major story which we've been covering for months now. Obviously, the direct action group, Palestine Action, has been prescribed here in the UK. It's been a big one for us because not only was the group prescribed, and it raised a lot of serious questions about, freedom of speech and our rights here in the UK, authoritarianism and the power of the Israel lobby, but also there's been a stiff resistance to this new designation. Hundreds and hundreds of people have been getting arrested, defying this law. Thousands, in fact, and we've been reporting on that extensively on a weekly basis at one point. And those protests are still going on, and I'm pretty sure into next year as well there's going to be more resistance to this law from many activists. There's actually hunger strikers right now. There's the Prisoners for Palestine group. I think they're obviously causing a lot of headlines which are embarrassing and challenging the government as well. I mean, people are saying that these activists are in serious medical condition, some of them. There was an ambulance needed to be called today for one of them. What's going to happen? I mean, people are saying this could be another Bobby Sands situation.
I mean, you and I...
that was massive.
I mean, you and I have been to many of these protests, and they're literally carting off grandmas and granddads.
Yeah.
And, the policemen, they should be ashamed themselves. I mean, they really drew the short straw, having to carry off people who could literally be their grannies and grandmas in such ignominious circumstances. And, look... it's absolutely crazy. The ban on Palestine Action was complete overreach, a complete capitulation to the Zionist lobby. It's been resisted in the thousands, mainly by non-Muslims, mainly by people that feel as though, a red line had been crossed, and, they'd seen a genocide taking place. They'd seen Western support and complicity in that genocide, and to basically tell them that they can't support a peaceful resistance group that hasn't hurt a fly, has only tried to stop Israel's war machine, was a step too far. And they were willing to go to jail to maintain those rights.
So, this is going to be the story which will roll on into next year. We are going to cover this as it unfolds. It's the Prisoners for Palestine. They face a day in court, but obviously their hunger strike still goes on, and we're not quite sure where that's going to lead. I mean, the government's not buckling under the pressure yet. It's the activists are vowing to carry on their hunger strike. People are comparing this to the Bobby Sands situation. It could go that far, who knows? So there is obviously that story, which has been a big one for us this year. I wonder what's next. We've got Saudi Arabia and the westernization. I know that's been a big one, which is it's gone viral here and there throughout the year. It's like the whole year it's just getting worse and worse, isn't it? It's getting more viral, more often.
So what have they held? They've held raves,
concerts. They have a lot of non-Muslims going to, like Medina, for example.
Bikini. There was a
Vision
bikini.
2030.
There was some kind of semi-naked bathing bikini contest around a swimming pool somewhere near Jeddah, I believed, as well.
Yeah.
And you got supermodels posing provocatively in front of certain sites in Saudi Arabia as well.
Yeah,
what
just,
else?
just photo shoots in the Hijaz,
Sports washing, sports competitions,
sports washing,
spending loads of money on stupid sporting contests,
Halloween, and I don't know. I think we're not far away. They've had visits from like Hindus from India, and I think it's just a matter of time for they have some temple open up. Do you know what I mean? It's going down that direction. They've already got a temple in the UAE.
Yeah.
So just across the border into Arabia, you're going to have Hindus, all
worshipping
sorts,
idols. Yeah,
pagans returning to the Arabian Peninsula. I mean, it's a bloody disgrace, quite frankly. I mean, the Prophet did everything he did to rid the area of paganism, and then these despots are bringing them all back. Do you know what I mean?
It just shows. I mean, one thing I haven't talked about is it actually shows the failure of the Saudi religious establishment. I don't want to criticize them too heavily, simply because a lot of them are in jail. A lot of scholars are in jail at the moment. You know,
there's been opposition.
Sincere scholars who oppose MBS's westernization, un-Islamic agenda. But the reality is that the Saudi religious establishment for many years worked hand in glove with the the secular leadership, the un-Islamic secular leadership, simply because the deal was, we'll leave the religious bits to you. You don't criticize us for our foreign policy, our alliance with the West, etc., etc. And that seemed to be the the way they worked. But I think the very fact that so many Saudi youth love MBS and love the entertainment that he's giving them kind of proves that the religious establishment failed to Islamize people, to put Islam in their hearts to a certain extent, because they grew up watching MTV and playing computer games, video games, Call of Duty. And that's what they do all day, while Indonesian maids take care of the house, etc. So, it's just a failure of Saudi society. And I think the religious establishment to really put Islam in people's hearts. But obviously we know that the ultimate blame lies with the leaders, the secular leaders. MBS obviously is the main guy. I always like to call him Saudi Arabia's Ataturk, in the sense that I think the revolution that he's undergoing there is a genuine attempt to change Saudi society from a conservative religious society to a westernized, un-Islamic society. And I think the guy has no shame, and there's no red lines for him. And I think that he will normalize with Israel as soon as the heat dies down a little bit in Palestine. I think what he hopes to do is to get some kind of agreement where there is a acknowledgement of a Palestinian state. It will not be worth the paper that it's written on, but it will be enough for MBS and the other sellout un-Islamic leaders to basically say that now is the time to normalize fully with Israel and integrate the Zionist entity into the Middle East. Yeah.
Another big story which we should talk about, and this will give me a chance to talk because this was a story I covered quite well, is the New York mayoral elections.
You like a lefty, don't you, Robert? You like a good lefty.
Your
party and Mamdani.
I can't help but get myself into these stories. I actually criticise the left quite a lot, including this year, but I still end up going and covering all their stories. But there is a story here. So New York City, we were there. I was there. We witnessed history being made as the first Muslim and man of South Asian heritage was elected to become the city's new mayor. He will take over in early 2026. He's going to be mayor officially in January. As you can see here from the headline, 90% of Muslims voted for Mamdani. There was a massive Muslim vote mobilization, which is exactly why we went. So regardless of what you think of Mamdani, people are obviously criticizing him. It was a Muslim story,
absolutely.
It's a very big Muslim story. It's a continuation of the Muslim vote over the Gaza thing. So since the Gaza genocide, we've seen here and now in America, Muslims mobilizing to politically punish the establishment or a particular party or the pro-Israel movement in the West on the issue of Gaza, and we're getting results, quite frankly. That's the good news here. Obviously, there's problems, vote splitting. Are we getting the right candidates in? Are these proper representatives of our community or not? Are they going to stay loyal to the Palestinian cause? So on and so forth. But the fact is, we are sending a message that we have power. We're a significant community in our little hotspots, and we can make an impact, you know. And that's something which, of course, we advocate for here at Five Pillars, is Muslims mobilizing, you know. That's what we like. So yeah, these stories have been good. I enjoyed going to America. It's a dirty little secret, you know. I know you did.
I bet you were starstruck. All those skyscrapers and Hollywood stars.
That wasn't what I liked, Roshan. Although,
what did you like?
You know, thank you for sending me to the Bronx, South Bronx, next to.
Oh, is that where you went?
Yeah, I was in South Bronx.
Right.
I wasn't in Manhattan. You know, the heart of the action. Our budget didn't permit it.
Did you go to Times Square and all these places?
Or? Yeah, I went there.
I bet you did.
I did.
You know, where'd you?
Did a bit of shopping.
Instead of doing your job.
A bit of shopping. Yeah, we swung past there. But what I like about this story is I'm meeting the Muslim community out there. So, you know, the Ummah is global. We're all over the place and we're different wherever we are culture-wise. But the American Muslim community, it's not easy to access them really. You know, we don't always get a chance to go to say, I don't think you've ever been, have you?
I've never been to America and I don't think I'll ever be able to go, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Not a massive, I mean, I'm the kind of person that wants to go to every country in the world because I'm quite curious. And I know that, I mean, I grew up watching those Westerns, you know, John Wayne and whatever.
Yeah.
And physically, America's a very beautiful country, isn't it? It's like a continent, in fact.
It is.
So I'd like to go for that reason alone. But I'm not massively fussed about going to American cities.
Five Pillars
it would be quite low on my list. I think it would be lower than Slovenia or, you know, kind of Estonia on my list of places to go.
Estonia. Well,
did you hear that, Donald Trump? Like, I'd rather go to Estonia than go to your country.
Well, I must admit that the fact is, whether we like it or not, America is, as you say, a very important place. It's like a world leader, isn't it? So to meet the Muslims in sort of the belly of the beast kind of thing, where all the action really happens, is interesting. And they act differently there. They think differently there for various reasons. But it's good to meet them. And we've made some contacts and some good friends there. So I have enjoyed it. But who knows? I mean, they're introducing new rules about who can go in and who can't. So who knows if I'll even be able to go again, to be honest.
Bye, Uncle Sam.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Mamdani obviously is a lefty, pro-LGBT, and all those kind of Sadiq Khan, Zara Sultana type traits. But I must admit, I'm happy that he won simply because it annoyed the Zionists so much. Yeah. And they were like saying, all right, emigrate to Israel. We don't want to live in New York anymore.
Yeah, and the Islamophobes in America, there are many more of them. They're very outspoken, very aggressive. They have a bit more freedom to hate than perhaps the far right does here. They were really aggressively attacking New York's Muslim communities and Mamdani. So the fact that he won really was a slap in their face. So yeah, for that reason alone, absolutely, people have been celebrating. But Mamdani, I've been assured by Muslims in New York that they're aware of the awkwardness around Mamdani and his attitudes and behaviours, and several pledged that we will hold him to account.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see if that happens, but there could be more stories there going forward. And when Mamdani's mayor, I'm sure he'll come under attack from all of these far-right Israel First forces. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm very encouraged to see that the Muslim vote movement
is making some impact. Yeah.
Is making serious impact, not just here, but in America as well, which is obviously, you know,
we have to use whatever tools. I mean, I'm not a great fan of voting or even focusing too much on the electoral system. I don't think that's where our attention should lie. But if we can, you know, if there can be a little bit of benefit for the Muslims, then why not? Let's use every tool available.
And then just to talk about our lefties over here, the Your Party. It was a big story. Not my most favourite. Probably a low point of the year for me. Quite frankly, it was quite a depressing story. I think from someone who, as you say,
I was happy because I turned out to be right.
Well known.
So I was justified. So it was a great story for me.
But the Your Party, I mean, my God, what a mess! What a mess! I mean, it symbolises everything that's wrong with the left. So I guess it's quite satisfying in that sense that the lefties actually got to see how sort of annoying and, you know, unorganised that they actually are.
And fundamentalist they are as well.
And fundamentalist and extreme.
Extremists,
Yeah, I mean...
anti-Muslim.
Anti-Muslim and Islamophobic, because that's something which we say we shouldn't just watch out for Islamophobia on the right. There's also Islamophobia on the left. We have to be careful of it. And people tend to go, oh, what you're talking about, you don't know, and that's not true, and blah, blah, blah. It's not there, really. Well, look at the Your Party. 2 religious Muslims forced out, basically, because they were made to feel unwelcome.
Yeah,
you know, because they're religious?
Even you and me, we got thick skins, but we were actually the victims of quite a vicious Islamophobic campaign by Zahra Sultana supporters, basically, online. Not Zahra Sultana herself, but her supporters.
Yeah.
And their immediate assumption is that we hate women, that we are misogynist, that we're bigoted, that we hold medieval views. And it was a bit of a wake-up call. I mean, I knew the lefties secretly thought that, but it kind of came out in the open. I'm not all lefties, but a sizable chunk of them, and especially those affiliated to Zahra Sultana.
Yeah,
but your party, I mean, right from the beginning, I think, look, I get things wrong, and I admit it when I get things wrong, but I'm pretty sure I got your party right. And at the beginning, I said that this is not something Muslims should get involved with. It is something that we should watch from the sidelines, and we should let's see how it develops. But if you try and get involved with it, basically the lefties will try to maneuver you out as Muslims. They won't like the fact that you're a practicing Muslim. They will not like your socially conservative views. They see you as a vote bank and nothing else. They do not want you in leadership positions. It's bad to get involved with them because close proximity with them will lead to basically you losing your iman, and or affecting your iman in any case, because their lefty views, their haram lefty views will kind of impact on you. And I think at the beginning I was probably in the minority, but I think by the end of this journey, and especially after the conference, I think the Muslim community now is against your party. I'm talking about practicing Muslims, and even kind of more secular Muslims. They've been affected by the Islamophobia as well, and the absolute chaos that's reigned in the party. So I think most Muslims now, and I would say maybe 70% of the community or even more, would not want anything to do with your party at the moment. Maybe they can redeem themselves a little bit as the years go on. Maybe we can look at them as perhaps voting for them in certain constituencies. One thing I would say, though, maybe a bit controversial, but one thing I want to say is that I don't think Zahra Sultana should be forgiven that easily. And I think what's going to happen now is that she will not win a seat in Coventry South. She can't hold a Coventry seat. That will go to Reform. So she will look for a seat elsewhere, and the most likely seats which she could win would probably be in her hometown, Birmingham. If she stands in Birmingham, I would encourage local Muslims to stand against her. She basically has said socially conservative Muslims are not welcome in the party. I believe she has been the root cause of a lot of the Islamophobia directed at practicing Muslims in the party. I know it wasn't her doing most of it, it was her supporters, but she started the ball rolling. She hasn't apologized for it, and that's because those are her honestly held views. She's not someone, I believe, that believing practicing Muslims should get behind. We can do better than her. We should not reward her for starting this Islamophobic onslaught.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, the thing is, I'm sure her and her supporters will run away with the idea that I've got some kind of problem with her or whatever, or Five Pillars does. We rarely spoke about her. I've never mentioned her prior to this scandal where she was involved in, alienating two religious Muslims in the party. So, I couldn't care less really if she gets elected or not. But the fact is that now she's taken this position and she's been part of what was kind of like an Islamophobia scandal in the Your Party.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right. It is outrageous, and she shouldn't. I mean, if she picked a side in this woke split with the Muslims or whatever, okay, fine. If that's the side you want, go and sit in an area where you think the woke LGBT rainbow mafia movement can get you elected.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any seats,
they can't.
but I assume you believe there are. So go and stand in one of those seats. Maybe in Liverpool. I know Liverpool's a left-wing city.
or something like that. Or...
Maybe she should stand Brighton. I mean, Brighton is a Green Party-heavy area, so she'd be vote splitting there. But again, you'll be vote splitting if
North
you go to
Pole.
Yeah, maybe. Polar bears might be a bit woke, although they're very white, so I don't think...
I don't think she'll get elected in the next election. I don't think there is a seat for her.
Yeah, I think her best chance, especially if she doesn't want to cause another upset with the Muslim community, is to go for a left-wing seat somewhere. Maybe she can make a deal where the Greens won't run there. Maybe in Liverpool. I think she's liked in left-wing circles. I think potentially she could win a seat, but not in a Muslim area, not in our Muslim vote.
She shouldn't. She shouldn't get in on the back of the Muslim vote.
And that's the thing. We need proper representation frankly. You know, we haven't got time for this anymore. Muslims are under attack more than anything else, more than LGBT stuff. I mean, the LGBT lobby controls the world in a similar way that the Zionist lobby does. You know, there's rainbow flags everywhere. You know what I mean? There's rainbow flags on airplanes, rainbow flags in the bank. I go down the street, there's rainbow flags on the zebra crossings, rainbow flags. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a rainbow flag right there on our show. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, they control the world.
I think one thing I would say about Zara is that
they've got enough. They've got enough representation already.
Zara has won the internal battle, though, I think, in your party, and your party now is basically a fundamentalist, extremist, lefty woke rainbow alphabet party.
So it's sacrificed its Muslim vote support.
Yeah. So, but in winning that battle, she has also consigned your party to irrelevance. That's my kind of analysis.
Yeah, it's a protest movement. I mean, you know, just final thing on this. The left might not be pragmatic enough to get this, but one of the best things that your party, again, I'm giving you guys free advice, even though I've been a bit offended by you all. But still, what can I say? I'm kind of stuck in the left, whether I like it or not, and whether the left likes it or not. The Brexit Pie, as it was called, Nigel Farage's thing before reform, there was an election where they didn't even run as candidates, if you remember. I forget which one it was, but they basically conceded, okay, on this occasion, we're going to be a protest movement, we're going to lobby, and we're going to back candidates that we like and advocate for them in those areas and mobilise. We'll get our supporters to get Conservatives elected. I think, was it to keep Corbyn out or to stop Labour getting in? Something like that. There was an election where they did that.
You're not making this up?
No, I'm pretty sure it's true. And it was because they took a pragmatic decision that it was within their interests as right-wingers to stop Labour or to stop Corbyn, to stop whatever it was. And they made that decision. Then they stood later on when they were strong enough and ready. Maybe the Your Party needs to accept the fact that it's smaller, it has some supporters, but it's not good enough, and it's going to split the vote if they stand everywhere. Right now, I think on the left, the Greens are the only party in town, if you want to speak about the left. So yeah, maybe they just need to be a protest movement in the next election, because obviously we've got to fight reform.
Like Dilly says, we've just got to focus on electing independent MPs.
Yeah,
Muslim and non-Muslim, non-Muslims as well. But I think there's got to be some red lines.
Yeah, Corbyn could get elected, so keep the seats they already kind of have.
Yeah,
and make their politicians step up for that. Like Ayub Khan definitely could win again. Showkat Adam definitely could win again. Jeremy Corbyn definitely could win again. I'm sure Zara Sultana wants to compete. So yeah, let them have their little seats. But otherwise, maybe just don't contest anywhere else. Just act as...
I also think we need to be more discerning about who we get into Parliament. I think there has to be a rigorous local process where we just get the best MPs into Parliament. And I think there was that process to a certain extent, but it wasn't as rigorous as I would have liked. We need solid people, solid performers, people that are going to make a massive impact. And I think if we do that, we can probably get about 20 independent MPs into Parliament.
Yeah. So yeah, next year I think it's not a general election. That's not till 2029. But we're going to have to confront the far right, and the left has to get its act together. And we're going to monitor it. But ultimately, as Muslims, we have our own vote, our own constituency, our own community. We need to beef that up, strategize, make plans, and prepare what we're going to do. Not what the Your Party or the Green Party are going to do. What are we going to do? That's what we need to do.
Robert, I think we just got 2 topics left.
Do you want to go to India or?
Yeah, let's go to India. You know,
it's a big one.
Brothers and sisters, I'm actually going to read off some notes here. I know it's a bit unprofessional. I mean, obviously, we've been following India, reporting on India every day. We kind of have, Muslims getting lynched, Muslims getting discriminated against, verbally abused, bullied, traumatized. The whole gamut of stuff, horrible stuff is happening in India. Perhaps the most Islamophobic society in the world. I actually asked our correspondent there, who, believe it or not, is anonymous because he's suffered death threats. But I actually asked him to send me some notes on what I should say about 2025 for Indian Muslims. And just summarizing what he said basically anti-Muslim discrimination in India has gone from being something that was shocking to something that is completely mainstream now. And there's hardly any repercussions for it at all, and it's just kind of business unusual. The bulldozer demolitions is something which is really accelerated in 2025, whereby if there's some communal trouble in an area where there's Muslims and Hindus, and one Muslim person gets blamed for it, then they start bulldozing homes to send a message out to the whole community, a bit like Israel does in Palestine. So this notion of collective punishment and bulldozer diplomacy is kind of getting very, very common in India. Rampant hate speech by politicians, by Hindu religious figures, all over social media, but also over mainstream media and in parliament, and no repercussions whatsoever. We've seen the lynchings, the murders, the violence, the media propaganda. On the plus side, the community does seem to be still quite resilient. It's launched a series of lawsuits. It's, they're not giving up their religion. They're adhering to Quran and Sunnah. They're trying to do as much independent journalism as possible to get their voice out, so that there'll be solidarity within other parts of India, because this is mainly happening in northern India and BJP ruled areas of India, and also the world and the wider Ummah, at great personal costs to themselves, because our correspondent had to go into hiding because, basically a lynch mob was after him. So that is the very, very depressing situation in India. And I think that, I often talk about France being, in the European context, France and Austria are probably the two most Islamophobic countries. But India is certainly at a different level, where it's not just rhetoric, but it's actually violence against Muslims that has become normalized and mainstream, and a very worrying situation for our brothers and sisters in India. May Allah preserve them.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting more and more shocking stories from India. Our correspondent always feeds us stuff, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. More horrific attacks. There seems to be a lot of sexual violence as well. We get those stories quite often. Women are getting sort of like stripped and attacked and assaulted sexually. There seems to be no... they'll go as low as ever. There's no limit to how low they'll go to commit their horrific sectarian Islamophobic hate crimes. The Hindutva, of course. And we have to remember, brothers and sisters, there are Hindutva forces active in this country as well. They haven't sprung up this year so much. I know that there was the Leicester Troubles a couple of years ago and the Birmingham Troubles, but those forces may return, and I think that they are lobbying as well behind the scenes, maybe trying to get some politicians on side. So that could flare up again at any time. And we know that obviously the hate that we see in India, the Hindutva hate, has rippled through the diaspora and has reached British shores already. So we have to see it's a threat here.
And this ultimately stems from this pernicious Hindutva ideology, which is spearheaded by Narendra Modi. When he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, we saw those pogroms happening against the Muslims. He's gone from that to becoming Prime Minister of India, a very long-serving Prime Minister, under which Islamophobia has gone through the roof.
I think this seems to be building up to something. I mean, we don't want to see anything like this, but next year or in a few years' time, one of our biggest stories could be that India,
we don't want to even say it, do we?
Ignites into some kind of massive sectarian war, something which India has seen in the past, where just huge community-wide violence, pogroms, that type of thing, lynchings.
And there doesn't seem to be any pressure on India, obviously, because India now is becoming a very important country economically, politically, in every way. And we see, Keir Starmer, Donald Trump, and many others, Putin, and many others kind of basically rolling out the red carpet for Narendra Modi. So there's no actual political pressure on India, or no focus really, I don't see that much focus from human rights organizations or the United Nations.
I think there is
the occasional report.
They just don't get platformed. That's what
but there's nothing. There's literally no pressure on the Indian authorities to kind of stop this violence or this discrimination, which is very concerning.
Yeah, I mean, just look at these headlines. This is all from December. There's a couple from November here. These are all our stories. Muslim cloth vendor dies after being lynched. Kashmiri trader beaten. Muslim man freed after 28 years in jail. Demolitions. Indian muezzin assaulted after making the adhan. It's just endless, constant stream of stories, and it's all Muslims being viciously attacked.
I think it's India. Like obviously we see the far right tropes, don't we? The Tommy Robinson types and their assault on Muslims and based on lies. Obviously, India takes that to an extreme. Maybe they're even a precursor Maybe they've even modeled their kind of propaganda on what's been happening in India, where they have notions like love jihad, like Muslims trying to forcibly convert Hindus, through marriage, and many other kind of tropes about Indian Muslims which just aren't true. But through dint of repetition, it becomes a fact, and then it becomes a reality, and then it becomes public policy, etc., etc. And I think that's what they're hoping to do to Muslims in the United Kingdom and across Europe. But Robert, I think the one thing I would say is that the reason why this is happening is because Western society is falling apart in many ways, and it's lost the conservative values that underpinned it. That's been destroyed by the feminists and the LGBT lot, the alphabet people, and now Western society, they don't believe in Christianity anymore, in God. They've literally lost all the values that underpinned their society when Britain was a great country, in terms of empire, etc. I say great in I'm using that terminology loosely, when it was a strong superpower. And I think because they know they're losing their country and what it was, they're just lashing out, and they can see that Islam now is quite a viable alternative that is growing, that is strong, that is an alternative even for the British people. And they realize they can't win the argument, so they're resorting to bans, they're resorting to violence, incarceration, etc., etc. And I think the media propaganda that we're seeing at the moment, the slander, is just a precursor to something which might get worse, but we must expect it. And the final thing I want to say is that a lot of Muslims I meet say, look, if we're only better Muslims, if we're only nicer, tone down the rhetoric a little bit about what's happening, then it'll all be fine. You're naive, brothers and sisters, you are super naive. What was the most Islamic, best behaved, best example of Islam generation in history? It was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba. Look at the Islamophobia that was directed against them. The best of creation with the best of examples. Look at the Islamophobia, the slander, the violence that was impacted upon them, even though they gave the best example of what a Muslim is. So let's not be naive, brothers and sisters. Of course, we should try and be the best examples of Islam we possibly can. But at the same time, we should realize there is a organized, well-financed attempt to destroy Islam and Muslims in the West, and we have to figure out how to confront that.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there any other stories?
It was actually a really big story. I'm all talked out now, so I won't say much about it. It was the Israel-Iran war and the US strikes on the nuclear facilities. All I would say about that, so this lasted about 12 days, didn't it?
Yeah, that was a big story.
It came to a head where Israel started to strike Iran directly. Iran struck back. Israel inflicted significant damage upon Iran. I think killed several thousand people and bombed many military facilities. On the other hand, Iran did strike back with drones, many of which did get through. Many deaths occurred. They destroyed a lot of Israel's infrastructure. Israel is a tiny country compared to Iran. And then it culminated in the US strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. We still don't know the extent of the damage. I think the best guess is that it's put Iran's nuclear program back a few years, but it hasn't destroyed it by any means. It was the first kind of direct military confrontation, serious direct military confrontation between Israel and Iran. And all I would say is that, Iran obviously has turned out to be weaker than perhaps we thought it was during this conflict. It has lost its resistance axis, or its resistance axis has been severely weakened. Israel has, if you had to call it on points, you would say Israel has won this confrontation militarily on points without delivering a knockout blow, because Iran is still intact. But at the same time, it has to be said that Iran was the only Muslim nation that actually did seriously fight Israel. None of the others did. So people that are very critical about Iran and even Iran's conduct vis-a-vis Israel need to realize there's levels to this, right? And, most of the Muslim world are at the bottom rung of the level. And I think Iran emerges with some credit in terms of its willingness to confront Israel, even though it did take severe blows.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. I mean, if Iran didn't do what it did, then that there would have been nothing. No support for the Palestinians whatsoever amid what was going on, and I think that's the most shocking thing is the fact that much of the Muslim world just wasn't willing to do a damn thing for Palestine. Iran was willing to do something. So, that's something which you can't take away from the Iranians. It's something you can't take away from the Yemenis as well. And obviously Lebanon took a lot of hits. I was in Lebanon to witness it. They suffered as well. And now, the Syrians are suffering as well. Israel's attacking them and attacking their country. There's a Greater Israel project, which is now official. I don't think anyone can deny that. And Israel has its eye on Syria, on Lebanon. The settlers are at the border just rubbing their hands, waiting to get in there and, settle a few communities or whatnot. So, what can we say? But Iran, I just wonder about the future. We know that obviously the regime chambers, the war hawks, they're eyeing up Iran. And I think that if you hit Israel the way that Iran hit them,
I won't be forgiven quickly, will it?
No, they're plotting, man. And
regime change,
Iran has made clear it's been plotting and pushing the US for years now to go to war with Iran. I mean, there are some people that think that America will return to war with Iran even under Trump, that...
he's got 3 more years left, or exactly. 2.5 years.
Exactly. So I just
Should we look forward to 2026 briefly? Anything
I guess so.
you think's coming up? I think the story of 2026 is going to be the continuing racism and Islamophobia directed at British Muslims.
For sure.
With their political incarnation being Reform UK. But I think also it will be the year that Muslims get a little bit more organised in their opposition to this project, perhaps in alliance with sympathetic non-Muslims as well. So I can see some hope, but it needs to happen quite quickly, I think.
Those conversations are happening. We're aware of that. We're involved in some of those conversations as well, behind the scenes. We'll see where it goes and if it creates stories. We have some events planned. I know Dilly's working on one. I think for me, next year, what I'm interested in doing more of is dabbling in the dawah work a little bit. I don't know how good I am at doing it, but certainly I can platform those who are doing it. Mosques, imams that engage in it really well. I can interview more converts, something which I've enjoyed doing, which I haven't done so much this year. And just more projects like any mosques being built. Let's platform them and support them like we have done in the Lake District. Because we have to remember that despite all of everything we've talked about today is Muslims under attack, Islam under attack, Islam being banned or outlawed, or Muslims being denied their rights. We're everywhere on the planet. Wherever you look, there are Muslims being oppressed. But Islam is still growing. People are still being won over. There are more and more converts, and they're black people, they're white people, they're brown people, former Hindus, former Sikhs, former Christians, former Jewish people. They're all embracing Islam. So this religion is still a winning force. We can't have a defeatist mentality. I mean, politically, militarily, the Muslim world is weak, but religiously, we're as strong as ever. Alhamdulillah. We can be better. I know people like to criticize Muslims, including Muslims like to do internal criticism, don't they? Say Muslims are not good and this and that. That's true. We're not all perfect, but still our religion is growing, and there's a lot of interest in the Quran. There's a lot of interest in people taking their shahada and learning more about it. So maybe this is the strategy which we're not talking about enough at 5 Pillars even. We do talk about it, but we're very politically orientated, so we forget to divert our attentions. Because
I think
people ask me so much, like, which party do I vote for? Protest movement, what are we going to do? Palestine Action, this as well, and blah, 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 and the protests surrounding that. Do you know what? To be honest with you...
Pray 5 times a day. Start with that.
I think that's my focus because, politics, protests, they're all important. They all have a place. And obviously we've got to hold the government to account, and everyone wants to be an activist, which is fine and understandable. But let's remember, we are Muslim. We have Islam. Allah is with us, inshallah. And, we've got to remember that dua and prayer and the Quran, these are powerful. And in fact, it's the weapon of the believers, isn't it? Doing dua is one of the greatest gifts you can give. And there is a massive appetite in this country. I've seen it. There's a massive appetite among non-Muslims to learn more about and to even embrace Islam. There's no doubt about it. Outside of the news agenda, it is there. Yeah. It exists.
I mean, look, I would say that I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's our first duty as Muslims to get ourselves right. And that's not easy, and we're all very imperfect. But if you're not praying 5 times a day, that's your first priority.
Yeah,
and if the Quran is not part of your life every day, then that's your priority.
Yeah, Ramadan's coming up.
And if you're not doing, the 5 pillars, if you're not studying the Syria, if you're not trying to better yourself Islamically, then actually that's your first priority. And most of us do not have the ability to reach people all around the world, but we do have the ability to influence ourselves, our family and friends. So that is actually your focus. And whatever job you're doing, whether you're a carpenter, you should be a Muslim carpenter. We are Muslim journalists, Muslim accountants, Muslim whatever, Muslim road sweepers. That's how we should see ourselves, and incorporate Islam into our work, whatever it is, and give dawah to our colleagues, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, quite frankly. I do believe we're in a stage of religious revival, where I see more Muslims being interested in Islam. When I was growing up, there's lots of secular Muslims around. And alhamdulillah, Muslims have always had this belief in Allah and this love for the Prophet. I've no doubt about that. But I do see people more practicing, more women wearing hijab, more men, taking seriously their deen. Still a long way to go, but I do believe we're living in the age of religious revival, not just in the UK, but across the world. And I do believe that one day we will see that impacted in the political field, in the economic field, in the every single aspect of our lives.
I think we just need to shore ourselves up as a community, and the best way to do that is to hold on tight to the rope of Allah and to the rope of Islam. That's what we can do. So next year, I think maybe that's going to be a focus of me. I might look for more of those types of stories. I'm looking to go to Newcastle. I'm looking to go back to Birmingham. I'm looking for converts, those types of stories. If you guys, of course, know any good stories, especially during the month of Ramadan, which is just a couple of months away now, we love to platform those types of stories during that holy month, and inshallah I'll do it more so throughout the year. I think when all else fails, let's just go back to the basics of Islam.
And in terms of 5 pillars, brothers and sisters, we do intend to do a lot more events next year. So traditionally we do 1 or 2 events a year, and and I'm including our Ramadan iftar in that. So we need to maybe do 1 a month. So we're going to get around about the country, West Yorkshire, Greater Manchester, Birmingham, London, other places as well, maybe Scotland, Wales, North East.
No, we have to.
Holding direct events with you guys, with our readers, our viewers, a bit more interaction. That's something that is a priority for me,
inshallah,
in 2026, inshallah.
Yeah, that's going to be good. Well, there we go. Is there anything else you want to say before the year ends?
No, we're all talked out, aren't we? We did actually, shall I mention that we did a double show today? Because
absolutely.
This is not actually live. We recorded this 1 week ago. And that's why Dilly was talking about today when it was last week. So we've actually done 2 shows in a row, so lacking a bit of energy now, but alhamdulillah, we got through it.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Well, it's been another action-filled year, and we appreciate, of course, all of your support. We have received in good amount, but of course, we always could do with a bit more, brothers and sisters. So do please like, share, and subscribe. Help the channel. I will put the links in the description section if you want to support our work. And I think everyone watching will agree with us when we say that I think 5 pillars is going to be needed going forward. And I don't just say that, selfishly as a journalist of 5 pillars, but frankly speaking, there's going to be tough times ahead, and you need someone out there platforming you, reporting on those stories and breaking the exclusives even, which no one else in the mainstream or the right-wing media are going to bother to discuss. We're under attack from all angles, brothers and sisters, but the one place where you can call a safety net or a safe space for Muslims is here at 5 Pillars. So please do like, share, subscribe, and support us directly if you can, with a contribution if possible, inshallah. Well, assalamu alaikum. Take care.
See you next year.
Happy New Year, if it's not haram
Santa's
to say
not
that.
real.
Yeah.
Don't do any fireworks on New Year's Eve.
No
See
celebrating. I don't want to see any celebrating. Ramadan and Eid is coming up.
Fun is haram.
Eid is coming up. That's when we celebrate, brothers and sisters. But until next time, take care. Assalamu alaikum. Ma salam for now.